Hey, you guys. So I'm not going to stay on here very long, but I did a panel with Cynthia with regard to Judge Joe Brown and like the controversy surrounding his feelings about Harriet Tubman being considered, right? Because she hasn't been put on any money, but being put on American money. And then tonight I was over at O'Shea's where the discussion was also about whether or not Judge Joe Brown was correct about what he said with regard to Harriet Tubman putting on the money. And I'm not going to play the clip from Judge Joe Brown or anything. I think pretty much at this point, everybody has heard the clip. Hi, Wendell. I feel at this point, everybody's really heard the clip. But essentially, Judge Joe Brown was saying that a man should be put on the money first, a Black man, not a Black woman. And he got a little emotional about it. But none of that really matters to me because somebody asked if I would speak on this topic, and I kind of didn't want to do it because I felt it was so divisive. But I'm just going to do a real quick comparison, and then I'm going to get about my evening because I actually have a test that I am still preparing to test that I need to get ready for tomorrow's class. So I can't spend too much time on this, but I am going to share my screen. Okay. So I want to share with you a document that really sort of personifies my problem with this discussion about Judge Joe Brown and Harriet Tubman and being put on the money. And that is that it disgusts me to my very core. I am disgusted to see Black people infighting and dragging each other over the privilege of being on American money. I feel that, as many people know, we must engage in socio-political revolution. I do not feel that it is appropriate for Black people to be fighting and bickering over if it is, who's going to get picked by the rich elite whites of this society to be represented on blood money first. I feel that is very base. But perhaps more interesting than that is this document. So this document literally personifies everything that I feel about this issue. And this is a quote from a slave. We're about to read the words of a slave. I just want to, the more Cynthia has sent me down this rabbit hole, Cynthia, I blame you. The more I dig into historical documents where Black slaves speak for themselves, the more I can make the connection to some of these sick base mentalities that we have in the present day. And I just want this all to stop. So the title of this is To See Who Was Best on the Plantation: Enslaved Fighting Contests and Masculinity in the Antebellum Plantation South. All right, this is archived. This is a true historical document. This is a real quotation of a slave narrative. All right, these are facts. To see who's best. Is that not what we're doing in this infighting over the American money? Who's best? Literally, I listened to a bunch of Black people talking tonight, Black men talking about there are Black men in history who have done more than Harriet Tubman. To see who's best on the plantation. Are we literally going to fight amongst ourselves to see who is best on the plantation? Enslaved Fighting Contests and Masculinity in the Antebellum South. Let's go ahead and read this narrative. Let's read the mindset of this slave. Now, this is a different mindset. Like a few days ago, we read another slave narrative that was powerful in a different kind of way. This is like the polar opposite of that, okay? Formerly enslaved with about 75 others on a cotton plantation in Jackson County, Alabama, John Finley, who is the name of the slave, recalled one of the few amusements he and his fellow slaves shared in their days of bondage. For enjoyments, remembered Finley, and I'm going to try to read this the best I can because they tend to write it in the same way that they said it, so bear with me. Weans have the cone huskin and the nigger fights. He said, we have corn huskin and nigger fights for fun on the plantation. Finley delighted in his recollection of the slave fights he witnessed growing up in antebellum Alabama, noting that although the fights were mo for the white folks' enjoyment, word, the fighting between the slaves was more for the white folks' enjoyment, he said. The slaves were also loath to see it. And did I not witness this many times in this conversation about Judge Joe Brown? Did I not witness Black people fighting each other? And trust me, white people are enjoying it. White people are enjoying us fighting and bickering over who's going to get on the money and fighting, saying, you know, you have Black women dragging Black men, you have Black men dragging Black women, all for a place on a dollar. And lo and behold, we have a slave that said, they have corn husking and nigger fights. Mo for the white folks' enjoyment on the plantation. The slaves were also loath to see it. So how many times have I watched huge crowds of people show up for nigger fights? The slaves love to see it too. Black people love to see us bickering too. Just like on the plantation. Y'all, just like on the plantation, we're infighting for the pleasure of massa. And we love to see ourselves beefing with each other because you know what? Nigger fights are fun, apparently. At least that's according to John Finley, a slave from Jackson County, Alabama. But let's see what else he has to say. According to Finley, the masters of the different plantations matched their slaves by size and then bet on them. Finley's master had one slave who weighed 150 pounds and who was an awful good fighter. He was quick like a cat and powerful. His size, and he lacked to fight. So I think he's saying that that slave was quick, he was powerful for his size, and he enjoyed fighting other slaves. The fighter named Tom would always win the battle quick. None last long with him. Such was Finley's love of the fights that he disclosed that the contest had made him reconsider his plans for running away to freedom. Let's fully absorb what has been said up to this point, okay? We're looking at a document that accounts a slave's narrative about fights to see who was best on the plantation. And yes, I'm tying this into the Judge Joe Brown, Harriet Hubman, which Black person's going to be the one to be on white blood money first conversation. Yes, I am going to draw the parallel. We're going to fight among each other to see who's the best on the plantation. Finley said for fun, they would have nigger fights. They would have nigger fights. And although the slaves like to watch a good nigger fight, the slaves like to watch each other fight, just like we like to watch each other beef here on YouTube. Although the slaves like to watch each other fight, the nigger fights were really for the masters, is what Finley says. Finley the slave. He said it was so deep for him that he literally reconsidered running to freedom. He didn't even want his freedom. He was so into fighting with other Black people. Y'all, this is a real thing. When I say Why are we fighting over money that should not even exist? Why are we fighting for a position in a society that is wrong? Why are we tearing each other down for this system that was built on a foundation, literally, of bodies of Black people? I mean, literally, like literally, there are mass graves of Black slaves under cities in this country, literally. And we want to fight over who's going to be on the money? We want to be like Finley? We don't want our freedom. We would rather fight on the plantation. Those fights between Black people are so good, we don't even want to see our freedom. We would rather fight with each other than see freedom. Right? We would rather fight with each other than see freedom. Finley said, I think and think about getting freedom. I think, well, I's gonna run off. Then I think of some enjoyment on the master's place. So he thinks and he thinks about getting freedom, but then he thinks about all the things he enjoys about being enslaved. He thinks about all the things he enjoys about being on the plantation. Then I think of some enjoyment on the master's place that I's like, such as the cone husking and the nigger fights and the singing, and I don't know what to do. This is real talk. This man said, I think about getting my freedom. I think about revolting. I think about going to freedom. But then I think about things that I enjoy on the master's plantation. I think about singing. I think about corn husking. I think about nigger fights. And I don't know if I really want to be free. And I just want to say this about this funky ass money argument that I'm over. You people want to fight over if Harriet Tubman deserves to be on the money over a Black man. And my question is, in what world do we turn on each other and fight to be on this money? Y'all are focused on all the enjoyments of the plantation, as Finley the slave said. You're focused on the corn husking. You're focused on the singing. You're focused on the nigger fights. But you know what you're not focused on? You're not focused on this revolution. I don't care who they put on the money. I don't care who they put on the money. Y'all are focused on the wrong thing. So thank you to the person who asked me if I would talk about this. I really wasn't going to, but I came by this document, and honestly, this document to see who's best on the plantation, this reaccounting of what a slave had to say, literally spoke to this Judge Joe Brown situation. Y'all are caught up in the corn husking. Y'all are caught up in the singing. Y'all are caught up in the nigger fights. Y'all are caught up in the enjoyment of the plantation. Y'all are lost. You're lost. You're lost. You're in a whole flipping delusion. You want to fight over who is best on the plantation. You want to have nigger fights, as our ancestor said. Yeah, that's our ancestor, John Finley. He said it. Y'all are caught up in the pleasures of the plantation to the point that you would rather have a nigger fight. That's what Judge Joe Brown is trying to have. That's what all these people who want to argue about who's going to get the money want to have. You guys, and what's so funny is no matter how you feel as a Black person, you don't get to decide. A rich white man will decide for you. So you sound ignorant out here, fighting with other Black people, dragging other Black people over a place on some money, blood money. You sound like John Finley, the slave who spoke this narrative. You sound like him. What did John Finley, the slave, say? He said, I thought about getting freedom. I thought about getting freedom, but then I thought about all the things I liked about, what did he call it? The master's place. He said, then I think of some of the enjoyment on the master's place that I like. I think of some of the enjoyment in the plantation that I like, and I don't know what I want to do. I don't know that I want to be free. I'd rather, he said he likes the nigger fights. He would rather fight with other Black people than be free. How many of you guys would rather fight with other Black people than be free? He would rather husk some corn. He would rather sing a song. How many of y'all want to be in the club instead of being free? This Judge Joe Brown thing, I'm so over it. I'm only even bothering to talk about this because I can tie it into a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is you people, a lot of you guys are on the wrong topic. You are fighting over something that's not even your choice. You are fighting to see who is best on the plantation. You want to be caught up in a nigger fight. That's what they called them. I'm not trying to be derogatory. That is literally what it is called. It's called a nigger fight. He said the nigger fights were more for the white folks' enjoyment than the slaves. But the slaves liked them too. The slaves liked to fight each other too. The slaves were into the nigger fight so bad they didn't want to be free. They would rather be a slave on a plantation fighting with other Black people than see their freedom. Now, again, he does not speak for all slaves, because just a few days ago, we read another account about a slave who very eloquently put to the point what it is like to be in slavery and the atrocity of it from a mental perspective, not even a physical perspective, but the other mindset. The contrast to the last slave narrative we read would be this one. This one. And this slave narrative personifies the Judge Joe Brown, Harriet Tubman debate. It personifies it. People want to fight to see who is best on the plantation. Dark Prophet, it's literally not funny though. It's pathetic. It's not even funny, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. It is pathetic. I am disgusted. I don't care what Judge Joe Brown thinks. I don't care if they ever put Harriet Tubman on $1. It is irrelevant to me. Because unlike John Finley, I'm not distracted by the enjoyment of Master's Place. I'm not caught up in the enjoyment of the plantation to the point where I want to reconsider my focus. I'm not caught up in the corn husking and the nigger fights and the singing on Master's plantation. I'm not caught up because Finley says he knows that the nigger fights were more fun and more for the enjoyment of the white people than they were for the Black people, but he didn't care. He'd rather stay in his position because of the enjoyment of the Master's Place. So I ask y'all. Thank you, Marcus. I agree. Marcus, I agree. That's the only reason I touched on this. That is the only reason I touched on this. Is because I agree. This is crazy. We're about to be in 2020, and a lot of us still have the mentality of John Finley. When will it stop? I really have to go, you guys. I have some tests I have to prepare for these babies tomorrow. But when is this going to stop? That's what I want to know. I will put the link. If you guys want to download the full narrative, If you want to have access to the full journal that this narrative is contained in, I will put the link in the description box. It's worth a read. And this is pretty much what I have to say about the Judge Joe Brown, Harriet Tubman thing. You people fight over who's best on the plantation. I'm not about to do it. I'm literally not about to do it. I'll talk to you guys later.